My name's Harry. I met Marilyn on a Saturday in late spring. I wasn't looking for anything. I had driven across town to visit my brother Ben, who had roped me into volunteering at a charity event his office was sponsoring, grilling burgers, handing out water, that kind of thing. Marilyn was there helping with the sign-in table. At first glance, polite smile, clipboard in hand, nothing that stuck. We said hello, made some awkward small talk about weather and traffic. Then I went back to flipping burgers. If you'd asked me her name the next day, I probably wouldn't have remembered. 3 weeks later, I ran into her again at Ben's backyard cookout. She showed up with his coworker Lindsay, who she knew from some networking group. This time she looked more relaxed, glass of wine in hand, laughing like she actually wanted to be there. We talked again, longer this time. She asked what I did, I asked the same. She said she worked freelance in marketing. I told her I was in private security management. She nodded like she was actually listening, not just being polite. Later in the evening, we ended up near the cooler at the same time. She looked at me for a second, then asked if I lived around here. I told her I did, just on the other side of the city. That was it. No flirting, no setup. Before she left, she asked if I wanted her number. I said sure. She typed it into my phone and walked off. We started texting after that. Then a few calls. Then meeting for coffee, dinner, weekends. It all moved slowly, but not in a boring way. More like we were just following a rhythm. Steady, no drama, no games. Looking back, that was the most dangerous part. When something starts quiet, you never hear the warning signs. But that's how it all began. Marilyn and I dated for almost 2 years. We didn't rush anything. It wasn't fireworks and poetry. It was simple, regular, easy. She liked to plan things. Weekend trips, double dates, themed movie nights. I was more of a quiet dinner and sleep in on Sunday kind of guy, but I went along. It mattered to her, so I adjusted. She said that's what she liked about me. "You don't push," she told me once. "You make space for people." I thought that was a compliment. We moved in together a year in, a small townhouse near the outskirts of the city, quiet, clean, affordable. She turned the guest bedroom into a home office for her freelance work. I installed a small gym setup in the garage. We split bills, furniture, routines. It felt fair, functional. When I proposed, it wasn't some big dramatic thing. Just us, a dinner at her favorite Italian spot, and a ring in a dessert box. She cried, said yes, hugged me like she'd waited her whole life. We got married 6 months later. Simple wedding, 50 guests, backyard of Ben's place. Marilyn handled most of the planning. She was good at that. Details, colors, seating charts. I just showed up, smiled, and said the words. Right after the wedding, I got offered a management position at a larger security firm. More responsibility, better money, but unpredictable hours. Some night shifts, a few weekend gigs, and the occasional out-of-town client work. She told me to take it. "We'll figure it out," she said. "It's for our future." So I did. The first few months were a blur. Training, travel, meetings, 3 a.m. calls. I told myself it was temporary, just part of climbing the ladder. Things would settle eventually. Marilyn picked up more clients too. She stayed busy. I'd come home late to the smell of leftover takeout in a dim hallway. We'd say a few words, a tired hug, a kiss, then bed. It wasn't passion, but it was partnership. At least, that's what I thought. Now I realize what we had wasn't breaking. It was already broken. We just didn't hear the crack yet. The thing about distance is, it doesn't always start with miles. Sometimes it starts with silence. A few months into the job, things started to shift. Marilyn didn't say much at first, just little changes. I'd get home from a 4-day trip, and she wouldn't ask how it went. I'd mention a rough client call, and she'd nod, distracted, like she was just waiting for me to stop talking. She stopped cooking, said she was tired, said she didn't know when I'd be home. So, what was the point? I tried adjusting, came home early when I could, moved some travel around, but it didn't help. She got snappy over small things, dishes in the sink, me forgetting to grab oat milk. She rolled her eyes more, laughed less. One night, I walked in after a long haul from Phoenix. Flight delays, reroutes, 3 hours of sleep. Dropped my bags, sat down, and she didn't even look up from her laptop. "Hey," I said. "Miss me?" Without looking, she replied, "You were gone?" I laughed, thought she was joking. But when I looked closer, I realized she wasn't even trying to hide it. That night in bed, she turned her back to me and said, "Are you even happy with this job? Or with us?" I blinked into the dark. "What kind of question is that? Just seems like you don't even want to be here." I sat up. "Marilyn, I'm doing this for us. This job gives us stability. The house, the bills, everything." She didn't respond, just pulled the blanket tighter. It got worse after that. She started accusing me, first in questions. "You ever get tempted out there?" Then in statements. "You probably like being away more than being here." Then one night, just flat out, "You're seeing someone, aren't you?" I stood there in the kitchen, holding a mug of coffee, staring at her like she'd grown another head. "No," I said calmly, "and I shouldn't have to defend that." She scoffed. "Men always say that before the truth comes out." I knew arguing was pointless. She'd already decided what she wanted to believe. That was the first time I didn't sleep beside her. A few weeks later, she told me she was heading out of town for the weekend. "Rachel invited me to her lake house," Marilyn said, grabbing an overnight bag. "Just the girls. No drama, no men, no work." I nodded. "Sounds good. You need a break." She kissed me lightly, quick, detached, and was out the door before I finished my coffee. I wasn't suspicious. Not then. Not until that night. Around 10:30, I got a text from Rachel. Something random. She had a question about this old patio heater I'd recommended. We'd talked about it during a barbecue once. I texted back, "Hope you guys are having fun at the lake." She replied, "What? I'm not at the lake. I'm home." "Why?" I stared at the screen. I waited a few seconds before calling. Rachel picked up. "Hey," I said, "is Marilyn not with you?" Rachel paused. "No, I haven't seen her in a few weeks. Is everything okay?" "Yeah, just miscommunication, I guess." I thanked her and hung up. I didn't freak out. I didn't call Marilyn. I just sat there on the couch, TV on mute, heart going steady. She walked in the next day around noon, sunglasses, smile, caramel latte in hand like nothing had happened. "Hey, babe," she said, tossing her keys in the bowl. "Trip was great. We should go together next time." I waited until she kicked off her shoes, then asked, "How's Rachel?" She didn't miss a beat. "Good. Still obsessed with those true crime podcasts. Wouldn't stop playing them in the car." I nodded slowly. "Funny. She texted me last night. Said she was home." That stopped her. She stood there, hand frozen midair like she forgot what to do with it. "You're lying," I said. "Not a question, just a fact." She hesitated, eyes flicking to the front door, then back to me. "Okay, fine. I wasn't with Rachel." "Where were you?" Silence. "Marilyn." More silence. Finally, she muttered, "It's not what you think." I leaned back in the chair. "Then you should start talking, because I'm not going to fill in the blanks for you." That was when everything started to unravel. She sat down across from me, arms folded tight, like she was bracing for a storm, but trying to look like she didn't care if it came. "I was with Jordan," she said finally. "You don't know him." "Should I?" "He's a consultant, works with some of my clients." I stared at her. "Is this a business thing or a personal one?" She blinked. "It didn't start like that." "Did it end like that?" Silence again. Then she leaned forward. "You want honesty? Fine. You've been gone, Harry. Maybe not physically every day, but emotionally. You checked out a long time ago. I felt invisible. Jordan, he actually sees me. He listens." I nodded, slowly. "So this is my fault." "I'm not saying that." "Yes, you are." She stood up. "I'm not going to be blamed for needing more than just bills paid and doors locked. I need to feel like I matter." I didn't raise my voice, didn't throw anything, just stood, grabbed my phone, and walked upstairs. Next morning, I called my lawyer. I didn't tell her right away. Let the papers do the talking. When she finally read them, she didn't cry. She didn't even act surprised. "This is what you want?" she said, arms crossed. "No," I said. "This is what you already chose." The weeks that followed were a blur of paperwork and posturing. Every phone call felt like a boardroom negotiation. Every division of property turned into a contest. She got the car, I got the house, she took a chunk of the savings. I kept my silence. Every time we had to speak, she found a way to throw in something sharp. Jordan actually likes taking trips with me. Funny how I don't miss walking on eggshells. I deserve someone who doesn't treat love like a checklist. I didn't take the bait. I never clapped back. I just nodded, signed, and left. You don't argue with someone who's already packed. And Marilyn? She was already halfway gone before the divorce was even drafted. The divorce was finalized on a Thursday. I remember because I signed the last form during my lunch break, then went back to the office and finished out the day like nothing happened. That night, I sat on my porch with a beer and no desire to celebrate. Just quiet. The kind that doesn't demand anything from you. 1 week later, 7 days, I get a call from Ben. You sitting down? He asked. Just tell me. Marilyn got married. To that guy. Jordan. I didn't say anything for a second. She what? Yeah, courthouse thing. Quick ceremony. Somebody saw it on her Instagram. I didn't laugh. I didn't curse. I just sat there and thought, that's fast, even for someone in a hurry to forget you. She really couldn't wait to make it official. I shrugged it off. Told Ben thanks. Got off the phone and went on with my day. But the universe wasn't done yet. 3 weeks after that, I was at Home Depot picking up parts for a busted sink when I turned the corner. And there they were, Marilyn and Jordan, together, holding hands by the lighting aisle. She saw me first. Her face went pale, then flushed, like she couldn't decide if she was mad I saw her or embarrassed by what I was seeing. Jordan, let's just say, he didn't live up to the legend she built during the divorce. Shorter than I expected, skinny, patchy beard. He wore a shirt 2 sizes too big and looked like he was still deciding what aisle the tools were on. I looked at her, then at him, and couldn't help it. I smiled. Just a small, honest smile. Hey, I said. Hope you two are doing well. Jordan nodded, unsure. Marilyn forced a grin. Yeah, we're good. She grabbed his arm like a lifeline, like I was a ghost she'd rather not acknowledge. All right then, I said. Take care. And I walked away. I wasn't laughing because I was bitter. I was laughing because I saw the whole picture now. She thought she upgraded, thought she won. But standing there in a bright, buzzing hardware store under cheap ceiling fans, I knew exactly who came out ahead. After that day at the store, I didn't think about Marilyn much. Not in a bitter way, just in that distant, dull way you remember a street you don't take anymore. I focused on work, fixed up the house, started running again. Nothing dramatic, no revenge arc, just routine, stability, peace. Funny thing is, a few months later, I ran into Stacy, one of Marilyn's friends. She saw me outside a cafe and came over like we were old classmates. I heard about everything, she said, lowering her sunglasses. I always thought you were too good for her. I gave her a polite smile. Appreciate that. She lingered, asked if I wanted to grab a drink sometime, said she just wanted to talk. As friends, she added, but we both knew what she was doing. I said no, gently but clearly. She looked surprised. I'm not looking for reruns, I said. Truth is, I wasn't interested in starting anything. I needed space to breathe, to stop seeing relationships like puzzles I had to solve. I wasn't bitter, just done. I've thought about it a lot since then. Not Marilyn, not really, but the whole thing. What it took from me, what it taught me. Here's what I know. If someone wants to misunderstand you, they will. You can explain, reason, compromise, but if they're looking for a villain, they'll paint you into that corner every time. And the moment someone makes you feel like defending your integrity is part of your daily routine, leave. That's not love. That's war in slow motion. Marilyn didn't break me. She just gave me clarity. I used to think losing her was a failure, that if I had just said the right things, or been home more or cooked more dinners, maybe it wouldn't have ended. But now, I get it. She was already gone before she ever left the house. People like that don't want partners. They want spectators, someone to applaud them, validate them, worship them. And that's not who I am. The first time I met Marilyn, she barely registered. Just a face in the crowd. Now, that's exactly how I feel when I think of her. A face I walked past and never needed to look back at. Thank you for watching.
It started out innocently enough, I guess. At least that's how I tell myself when I look back on it. A little bump in the road. A rough patch, you know? Life throws curveballs, and it's not like I didn't see it coming. Marriage isn't all rainbows and butterflies. But this, I never could have imagined it. It all began a year ago. We were sitting at the kitchen table sipping our coffee, the morning sunlight flooding through the windows. The kids were still asleep upstairs, and for the first time in weeks, I could feel the tension between us start to loosen. It had been a rough few months. Work had been overwhelming, and honestly, I was feeling burnt out. I wasn't giving her enough attention, not the way I used to. I know that much. She wanted more, needed more, and I wasn't offering it. But what Helen didn't know was that I had noticed things slipping too. She'd been distant. Her laugh wasn't the same. There was an emptiness in her eyes sometimes, like she was thinking about something I couldn't see. I tried not to question it too much. After all, we'd been married for 10 years. Relationships get complicated, right? You need to talk to someone, Ryan, Helen said, her voice soft but firm. I took a deep breath, trying to muster a response. What do you mean? We talk all the time, don't we? She shook her head, a faint smile playing on her lips. No, Ryan. You don't talk to me the way you used to. You don't even really see me anymore. The words stung, but I couldn't deny there was truth in them. I'd gotten caught up in work, in life. She'd been holding down the fort, taking care of the house and the kids, and I had just let it happen, let us drift. So what do you suggest we do? I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. We need to go to therapy, she said. Couples therapy, you and me, just to reconnect, you know. I think it'll help. Therapy? It seemed like such an extreme step, but I didn't want to lose her. I agreed. Our first session was awkward. I wasn't exactly thrilled about sitting in a room with a stranger while we talked about our issues, but Helen insisted, and I could see that she wanted to make things better. That alone made me willing to try. Dr. Adam was the therapist we'd been assigned to. He was a middle-aged man, calm and collected. He looked like someone who'd been doing this for years, which, as I later learned, he had. He asked us a lot of questions about our relationship, our childhoods, our expectations. I thought I had a good grip on it, but I could see Helen was a little more emotional. Her eyes were red, and she bit her lip as she spoke. There's just so much distance between us, she admitted, her voice trembling. I don't feel loved anymore. Not the way I used to. I looked at her, confused and hurt. What do you mean? I've been working hard for us. I do everything I can. I know you work hard, Ryan, she replied, her voice soft but firm, but you're not here. You barely spend time with me. I feel so lonely. Dr. Adam nodded sympathetically, jotting down notes. He turned to me. Ryan, how do you feel about what Helen just said? I could feel the weight of the question on me. I don't know. I guess I just don't see it the same way. I feel like we're just going through a rough patch, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. We kept going to therapy. At first, it felt like things were improving. Helen seemed more engaged, more open to talking. We started to reconnect, or at least I thought we were. But then, something shifted. One evening, after another session, Helen told me something that made my stomach churn. I think I should see Dr. Adam on my own for a while, she said, barely looking me in the eye as she stared at her phone. I think it'll help me work through some things. I was taken aback. What do you mean, on your own? Why? She shrugged, her voice quieter than usual. Just personal stuff. I think it'll be better if I work through some things alone. I didn't push it. If she thought it was necessary, I was willing to let her have space. But a small voice in the back of my head started to whisper. Something didn't feel right. Weeks passed, and Helen started spending more time with Dr. Adam. At first, it was just one session a week, but then it became 2, then 3. Every time I asked how it was going, she'd give me vague answers. It's good, she'd say, or I'm really making progress. But I didn't feel like I was getting the full picture. One evening, I asked her if she could tell me about her sessions, about what she was talking about with him. I don't think it's really your place to know, she replied, her voice sharp. I tried to hide my hurt. I'm your husband, Helen. I want to understand. Her eyes flashed with frustration. This is my therapy, Ryan. I need to do this for myself. I nodded, even though her response didn't sit right with me. She'd always been open with me, until now. The next day at work, an idea struck me. We were in a rut, stuck in a loop of stress and distance. Helen had a counseling session that evening and mentioned she'd be home late. I realized this gave me the perfect opportunity to plan something special without her suspecting a thing. So I left work early, picking up an order of her favorite dishes from this upscale Italian place we used to love. I bought a nice bottle of wine, something expensive, not the usual stuff we kept in the house. On the way home, I even stopped to grab candles and fresh flowers, wanting to make everything perfect. Once home, I set the table like we were at a fancy restaurant. The kids were staying over at their grandparents' for the night, so we had the house to ourselves. Candles flickered on the table and the smell of the food filled the air. I had it all planned. We'd have a romantic dinner, share some wine, and then move things to the bedroom. It would be just like the old days. When Helen walked through the door, I was practically vibrating with nervous energy. She froze for a moment, taking in the scene, her face a mixture of surprise and confusion. "What's all this?" she asked, setting her bag down by the door. I stepped forward, grinning. "I thought we could have a special night. Just you and me. I figured we needed a little break from everything." Her face softened, and for a moment, I saw the Helen I fell in love with. She walked up to the table, touched the flowers, and smiled. "Ryan, this is really sweet. Thank you." Her reaction gave me hope. Maybe this would work. Maybe we'd finally reconnect. We sat down, and for a while things felt normal, almost like old times. We ate the food, sipped the wine, and talked. Helen seemed more relaxed than she had in weeks, even laughing at some of my jokes. For a brief moment, it felt like the wall between us had started to come down. After dinner, I suggested we take the wine to the living room. She agreed, carrying her glass as we moved to the couch. I dimmed the lights, the atmosphere cozy and warm, and sat next to her. We talked a bit more, and I decided to take a chance. Setting my glass on the table, I reached for her hand, intertwining my fingers with hers. Then I leaned in and started kissing her, my heart racing as I hoped to bridge the distance between us. Helen hesitated, then pulled back slightly, giving me a small, apologetic smile. "Ryan, this is really sweet. I mean it. But I'm so exhausted. I think I'm going to take a quick shower and head to bed." I tried to hide my disappointment, forcing a smile. "Are you sure? I thought maybe we could, spend some time together. Just us." "Ryan," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "I appreciate all of this, really, but I'm just so tired. Can we do this another night?" Her words stung more than I wanted to admit, but I forced a smile and nodded. "Yeah, sure. Another night." She kissed me softly on the cheek before heading to the bedroom. I sat at the table for a while longer, finishing my wine alone. The soft glow of the candles and the scent of the food now felt like a cruel mockery of what I'd hoped the night would be. When I finally joined her in the bedroom, she was already in the bathroom, the sound of the shower running. I lay down, staring at the ceiling, telling myself she wasn't rejecting me. She was tired, that's all. People get tired. But no matter how much I tried to rationalize, a part of me couldn't shake the disappointment. As the water turned off, I closed my eyes, pretending to be asleep. The bathroom door creaked open, and Helen stepped out, wrapped in a towel. The light from the bathroom spilled into the room, illuminating her figure. She walked toward the closet, letting the towel drop as she reached for her pajamas. That's when I saw them. Faint bruises. One on her hip, another on her upper arm, and a third, barely visible beneath her collarbone. I sat up, my heart suddenly pounding in my chest. "Helen, are you okay? What happened?" She froze for the briefest moment before quickly pulling on her pajamas. "What do you mean?" I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "The bruises. I just noticed them. Did you fall or something?" She turned to face me, her expression calm, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't place. "Oh, those?" she said lightly, brushing it off. "I must have bumped into something. You know how clumsy I am." She gave me a weak smile before slipping into bed. Her answer felt too convenient, too rehearsed. Helen wasn't clumsy. In all our years together, she'd rarely had so much as a scratch, let alone bruises like these. I nodded slowly, lying back down, but my mind was racing. The explanation didn't sit right with me. Helen had always been honest with me, but something about the way she'd dismissed my concern made me uneasy. As she settled into bed, turning away from me, I replayed the past few weeks in my mind. The late nights at therapy, the way she avoided intimacy, the fact that it had been more than 2 weeks since we'd last been close, and she hadn't shown any interest in starting again. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying her words over and over in my head. Something didn't add up. I had started to feel like there was more going on with Dr. Adam than she was letting on. 2 days after that night, I took a day off work. Helen had another late session with Dr. Adam, and I was going to follow her. I had to know. If something was off, I needed to figure it out. I parked my car a few spaces down from Dr. Adams' office and waited in the shadows. A few minutes later, I saw them, Helen and Dr. Adam. They didn't look like therapist and client. They were too close, their voices too soft as they entered the building. My heart pounded as I slipped out of my car and followed them. They took the elevator to the second floor, and I quietly took the stairs, trying to stay one step behind without being noticed. When I reached the hallway, I saw them disappear into his office. The door clicked shut behind them. I stepped into the waiting area just outside Dr. Adams' office. It was eerily quiet, the faint hum of the building's ventilation system the only sound. My eyes immediately fell on the office door. The blinds on the glass window were drawn, and I couldn't see inside. But then I noticed the door was slightly ajar, just enough to give me a glimpse. I crept closer, careful not to make a sound. Through the small crack in the door I saw them, Helen and Dr. Adam, standing close together. Too close. My stomach churned as I watched him brush a strand of hair from her face. Then he leaned in and kissed her. My hands balled into fists at my sides. Every instinct screamed for me to barge in, to confront them right there and then. But something held me back. I needed proof. If I was going to do this, I had to make sure there was no denying what I saw. I pulled out my phone, hit record, and angled it toward the door. My hands were trembling, but I kept the camera steady, focusing on what was unfolding inside. Dr. Adam kissed her again, his hands moving to her waist. She didn't stop him. Instead, she started unbuttoning his shirt, and he tugged at hers, slipping it off her shoulders. They were oblivious to everything, caught up in their betrayal. I couldn't watch anymore. My blood boiled and I shoved the door open, storming into the office. "What the hell is this?" I shouted, my voice reverberating through the office, filled with a rage I could barely contain. Helen shrieked, scrambling to grab her shirt from the floor, clutching it to her chest like a shield. Dr. Adam staggered back, his shirt half undone, his face pale, his lips trembling as though he were searching for an excuse that would never come. "What the hell is going on here?" I demanded, raising my phone to ensure every second of this betrayal was recorded. Helen jumped off the desk, her face drained of all color. "Ryan, it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" I barked, my voice rising with every word. "You're in his office, half naked. What the hell am I supposed to think, Helen?" Dr. Adam stepped forward cautiously, raising his hands as though to calm me. "Ryan, let's take a moment to talk this through." "Talk this through?" I interrupted, my fury boiling over. "You're a therapist," I spat, my words dripping with disgust. "You're supposed to help people, not destroy their marriages. You're disgusting." Dr. Adam opened his mouth to reply, but before he could, I stopped the recording, pocketed my phone, and lunged at him. My fist connected with his jaw in one swift, brutal motion, sending him sprawling into the desk. Papers, pens, and a lamp crashed to the floor in a chaotic heap. Helen grabbed my arm, tears streaming down her face as she tried to pull me back. "Ryan, stop, please. This isn't going to solve anything." I yanked my arm free, turning to her with a glare that could cut through steel. "Solve anything? You're defending him? After this?" Her face crumbled and she choked on her words. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I am so sorry." Dr. Adam, still crumpled against the desk, touched his jaw gingerly, blood trickling from the corner of his mouth. He glared up at me and said, "You need to leave, Ryan. Now." I let out a cold, bitter laugh. "Oh, I'm leaving. But you're going to regret this. I promise you that. I will make sure everyone knows exactly who you are." I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone. "I've got everything I need right here," I spat, holding my phone up and waving it for emphasis. "Your career's over, Adam. Count on that." Helen tried to step closer to me, her voice breaking with desperation. "Ryan, please, let me explain." "Explain!" I roared, cutting her off. "You're screwing the guy who's supposed to be fixing our marriage. What the hell is there to explain?" Tears streamed down her face, her voice trembling. "Please, Ryan, I am so sorry. I love you." I shook my head, my jaw tight, the weight of her words meaningless now. "You don't get to say that. You don't get to say you love me after this." I stormed out of the office, her voice calling my name fading into the background. I didn't stop. I didn't turn back. I couldn't. The betrayal was too deep, and there was no coming back from this. The next day I called my lawyer. Filing for divorce wasn't a question anymore. It was a necessity. I wasn't going to stay in a marriage built on lies and betrayal. I wanted to make sure Helen's choices didn't just hurt me, but didn't destroy our children's lives either. As for Dr. Adam, I filed a formal complaint against him, submitting the recordings to the licensing board. It didn't take long before his license was revoked. He was no longer allowed to practice. It felt like a victory, but the real fight was just beginning. The divorce process was brutal. Helen begged for forgiveness at first, sending me texts and leaving voicemails about how much she loved me and how sorry she was. But when she realized I wasn't going to change my mind, she became defensive, trying to paint herself as the victim. Her lawyer attempted to argue that I was overreacting, that it was a momentary lapse in judgment, and didn't define her as a mother. But I had the recordings. They were my shield and my sword. The videos exposed not only the affair but the sheer audacity of their actions. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about ensuring the stability and well-being of our kids. When it came time to decide custody, I used every shred of evidence to show the court what kind of choices Helen had been making. Choices that put her own needs above her family's. Helen fought back, claiming she was overwhelmed and made a mistake, but the recordings painted a different picture. The judge saw it too. In the end, I was granted full custody of the kids. Helen tried to argue for joint custody, but her actions during the affair made it clear where her priorities had been. The kids stayed with me, and Helen was given limited visitation rights. I couldn't understand how she justified leaving them behind during this mess, but I made sure my side of the story was heard loud and clear. Looking back on it now, I'm not sure what I expected when I confronted Helen. Maybe I wanted an apology or an explanation. What I got instead was a broken woman who couldn't own up to what she had done. She blamed me. She said I'd driven her to it. But in the end, I knew the truth. She wanted me to fix myself in therapy, I said, the weight of it all hitting me. Turns out, I fixed my life by leaving her and taking the kids with me. Thank you for watching. You never really notice the moment your life begins to fall apart. It doesn't crash all at once. It unravels slowly, quietly. You blink, and suddenly nothing is the same. It started on a Friday night. Donna told me she'd be going out with her old college friends. Just a girls' night, she said, kissing me on the cheek. Don't wait up. But I did wait up. I always did. Midnight passed, then 1 a.m. came and went. I started pacing. By 2, I'd checked my phone more times than I could count, pretending I wasn't worried. But I was. Something felt off. At 2:37 a.m., the front door finally creaked open. I stood in the hallway, arms crossed, trying to stay calm. Then I saw her. Donna looked like she had walked through a war zone. Her hair was tangled, her makeup smudged. Her heels dangled from one hand, and the strap of her dress was twisted like it had been yanked. Her eyes were glassy. She avoided mine. "You okay?" I asked, my voice lower than I expected. She nodded too quickly. "Just tired. Can we talk tomorrow?" I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake her and ask her where she had been, who she had been with. But I said nothing. Instead, I helped her upstairs, and when I noticed a subtle scent on her skin, a cologne I didn't own, I felt something snap inside me. I cleaned her up quietly. No accusations. Not yet. As I pulled the blanket over her, she mumbled something, barely audible. It didn't mean anything. I froze. "What?" I asked, but she had already drifted into a drunken sleep. I stood there, watching her breathe, wondering when the woman I loved had become a stranger. By the time the sun came up, I hadn't slept a second. I sat in the kitchen staring at the same cold cup of coffee for over an hour. My mind kept spinning, trying to make sense of what Donna had mumbled the night before. It didn't mean anything. What exactly didn't mean anything? Was she talking about something she'd done? Something she regretted? My gut was in knots. At 8:13 a.m. I heard the creak of the stairs. Donna shuffled into the kitchen, rubbing her temples, clearly battling a brutal hangover. Her eyes were bloodshot, and she looked at me like she wasn't sure if she was walking into a fight or a funeral. "Hey," she said cautiously. I didn't say anything back, just nodded toward the table. Her heels were sitting there, mud-stained and scuffed. Next to them, the necklace she had worn last night was snapped, one of the glass beads missing. I had found it in her purse, cracked in two like it had been pulled hard or stepped on. She followed my gaze. Her face changed, pale first, then flushed. "Liam, I know how this looks," she started. Do you even remember what you said last night? I asked, cutting her off. My voice was calm, but something cold was sitting in my chest. She blinked, clearly trying to piece the night together. Then she pulled out a chair and sat down, resting her head in her hands for a moment. We went out to a bar downtown, she said. Me, Tasha, and the girls. I had too much to drink. Like, way too much. I don't even remember how we got home. Tasha said I fell down outside the Uber and dropped my bag. That's probably when the necklace broke. I just watched her. And the dress? I asked. It looked like someone had tried to rip it off you. She winced, not answering right away. I don't know. Maybe when I fell. Or maybe someone bumped into me at the club. It was packed. You know how people get when they've been drinking. She was talking fast now, trying to fill in all the blanks, as if that made it sound more believable. I looked at her for a long time. The way she avoided eye contact. The way her fingers kept tapping the table nervously. She was telling me a story, but I wasn't sure it was the truth. I didn't push. Not yet. Because part of me still wanted to believe her. Still wanted to believe that this wasn't what it looked like. That I was overthinking. That she hadn't done what I feared. But deep down, something told me. This was just the beginning. A few days passed. Donna acted like everything was fine. Like nothing had happened. I still didn't believe her explanation from that morning. The broken necklace, the torn dress, the way she dodged every direct answer. But I said nothing. I waited. Then, one Thursday afternoon, I came home from work early. My last meeting got canceled. Donna had said she had errands to run, so I figured maybe we could spend some time together after that, or go grab lunch. Just something normal. But when I pulled up to the house, her car was already in the driveway. I walked in quietly. The place was silent, aside from the muffled thud of footsteps upstairs. Then her voice. She was on the phone, laughing. Carefree, light, like she didn't have a single crack in her world. I moved slowly toward the stairs and stopped just before the landing. She was in our bedroom with the door half closed. God, Ashley, I swear it was insane, she said, laughing, no guilt in her voice at all. I didn't even plan on anything happening, but after a few drinks, I don't know, it just escalated. She paused, then her voice dropped into something softer, more dangerous. I mean, I didn't expect him to be that good. The man is a freaking machine. I don't know if it was the way he took control or just the confidence, but damn, he knew exactly what he was doing. I clenched my jaw so hard I felt a click in my neck. She kept going, still oblivious. It was just supposed to be one night, she said. Just one. But honestly, I needed it. I've been so bored. Liam's a good guy, he is, but he doesn't see me anymore. Not like Aaron does. Aaron. A name. Finally. She let out a breathy laugh. I already told him I'm coming tomorrow night. He booked the room again. Same place, same time. You better believe I'm not backing out this time. She wasn't sorry. Not even a little. No hesitation, no conflict in her voice. Just excitement. I stood there, gripping the railing, my mind racing. Every word punched me straight in the gut. My ears were ringing, and for a second I thought I might actually black out. I should have kicked open the door. I should have confronted her right then, made her say it to me instead of whispering it like some twisted confession to her friend. But I didn't. I turned and walked back down the stairs, each step slower than the last, because now I knew, and knowing was more powerful than confronting her in the heat of the moment. She didn't just cheat. She chose it. She was planning to keep doing it. She wasn't in pain. She was alive in it. So I made a decision, right there at the foot of the stairs. I wasn't going to shout. I wasn't going to beg for the truth. I was going to collect every piece of it and bury her with it. That night, after Donna fell asleep, I did something I never thought I'd do. I went through her phone. The passcode hadn't changed. She probably didn't think I'd ever dare to look. The first thing I saw was a message thread titled A. Aaron. I clicked it open. Dozens of messages. Nothing filthy. She was too smart for that. But the meaning was there. You looked incredible that night. Still thinking about you, he wrote. Tomorrow can't come soon enough. I've been counting the hours, she responded. I sat back, staring at the screen, my chest hollow. I needed to know who this guy was, so I searched for him. His full name was right there in her contacts. It didn't take long. Social media laid it all out. Aaron was married. His wife's name was Emma. They had 2 kids, a boy and a little girl. His profile was full of family pictures, trips to the lake, birthdays, Halloween costumes. He looked like a man with everything. And here he was, sneaking around behind it all, just like Donna. The next night she got ready like she was heading to a date. Because she was. I watched her from the kitchen as she stood by the hallway mirror, applying lipstick like it was a weapon. She hadn't worn that red blouse in over a year. Tight fit, deep neckline. She saved that top for moments when she wanted to be noticed. Her heels clicked across the hardwood as she grabbed her purse. "I'm going out," she said, not making eye contact. "Out where?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "Girls' night. Tasha's birthday." She said it so smooth, like she had practiced it. I nodded slowly, letting the silence hang just long enough to make her wonder if I believed it. "Nice," I said finally. "Tell her I said happy birthday." She smiled, phony and practiced, and walked out like she had nothing to hide. I gave it 2 minutes. Then I grabbed my keys and followed. Her taillights disappeared into the evening traffic, but I kept a steady distance. No headlights on her bumper, no sudden turns. Just shadowing, watching. She drove downtown and parked behind a small, low-key bar, the kind of place people go when they don't want to be seen. I parked across the street and waited. 10 minutes later, a car pulled up. Him. Aaron stepped out like he was stepping into a showroom. Perfect hair, tailored coat, cocky walk. He checked his phone, glanced around, then leaned against the hood like he was posing for a catalog. Donna appeared from around the corner. She didn't even hesitate. She walked straight up to him. They kissed. Right there on the sidewalk. Like it was the most normal thing in the world. No guilt, no shame. Just lips on lips, her arms around his neck, his hands on her waist. She giggled. He whispered something in her ear, and she smiled like a teenager sneaking out of her parents' house. I lifted my phone, snapped the pictures. One of the kiss. One of the hug. One of her looking up at him like he was the one she'd been waiting for all along. My stomach was stone. I watched for another minute, just long enough to see them walk inside together, shoulder to shoulder, like this was a routine, like it wasn't the first time, like they had their own rhythm already. I sat in the car, hands clenched on the wheel, jaw locked tight. I wanted to go in, to grab him by the collar and drag him into the street, to make her explain in front of a room full of strangers what the hell she thought she was doing. But what was the point? To defend what? A marriage built on lies? A woman who chose someone else and didn't even bother to hide it? No, that wasn't strength. That was desperation. And I wasn't going to be desperate for her. So I drove home, alone, but with proof. That night I called a locksmith, told him I needed the locks changed. He came by just after 10 p.m. and had the job done in under 20 minutes. At 11:42 p.m., Donna tried to open the front door. She couldn't. At first it was just the soft sound of the handle turning, a quiet jiggle. Then a knock, another, a little harder this time. I stayed silent. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed in my pocket. Donna. I watched the screen light up, then fade. She called again, and again. I didn't answer. A pause. Then came the pounding. Fists against the wood. Sharp, repeated, angry. "Liam!" she shouted from the other side. "What the hell is going on? Open the door!" I waited a beat, just long enough for her to feel the panic set in. Then I opened it. She looked like a storm had hit her. Makeup smeared, hair blown sideways, one heel dangling from her hand, the other probably lost in the scramble. Her expression snapped between confusion and fury. "What is this?" she barked. "Why can't I get in?" "I changed the locks." "You what?" "I figured if you were going to keep lying to my face, you didn't need a key to my house." She froze. "Liam?" I held up my phone, opened the photo gallery, flipped through the pictures. Her and Aaron, hugging, kissing, laughing like teenagers. Her face dropped. "Where do you want me to start?" I asked. With the lies? The cheating? Or how you looked me in the eye and told me you were out with your friends? She said nothing, just stared at the pictures. You're done here, I said. Tomorrow I'm filing for divorce. Your things will be packed and sent to your parents' house. Liam, wait, please, it's not what… No, you made it what it is. Now get out. She didn't say another word, just turned, wiping her face, and walked back to her car. She didn't come back. The next morning I sat in a lawyer's office, told him everything, started the paperwork. That afternoon I sent the photos of Donna and Aaron to Emma. She replied within the hour, "Thank you for telling me." 2 days later I heard she kicked Aaron out, filed for divorce too. Donna tried calling, sent a few texts, long ones, full of excuses and regrets, but I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. The divorce moved fast, no kids, no reason to drag it out. 6 months later it was final. I heard through mutual friends that Donna moved in with her sister. Word is she tried to reach out to Aaron again, but he ghosted her. Maybe his life collapsed harder than hers, or maybe he finally realized that people like them burn everything they touch. I didn't care anymore. I was free. For a while the silence was hard. The house was empty, quiet in a way that felt lonely instead of peaceful. But that changed. I got back to the gym, took a trip by myself to the mountains, spent time with people who didn't lie to me, laughed again, slept through the night. It wasn't about moving on with someone else. It was about finding my own damn peace. And I did. Donna lost a husband who would have done anything for her. I lost someone I never really knew. But I found myself. And that, in the end, was the best thing I could have ever hoped for. Thank you for watching. Let me take you back to the night that changed everything. Our 10-year wedding anniversary. Linda and I had been together for over a decade, married for 10 of those years, and raising 2 wonderful kids, Ella and Noah. That night was supposed to be a celebration of us, a tribute to the life we'd built. To make the evening special, we sent the kids to my mom's house so we could host a small party at home with our closest friends. Linda went all out. The house looked breathtaking, decked out with gold and silver balloons, twinkling fairy lights, and the finest china we owned. She even put on my favorite jazz playlist. It was as though she had planned every detail to perfection. "Daniel," Linda called from upstairs as I checked the kitchen one last time. "Can you make sure the wine's chilled?" "Already did," I called back, holding up a bottle of her favorite Chardonnay. She descended the stairs wearing a deep emerald green dress that hugged her figure beautifully. I couldn't help but smile. "You look incredible." "Save the charm for later," she teased, winking. By 7 p.m. our guests had arrived. Sarah, Linda's college roommate, her friend Mark from her book club, Linda's co-worker Amy, and of course Adam, my best man and oldest friend. Adam, my oldest friend. He was there through everything. College, my first heartbreak, and yes, my wedding. He even made the trip to our city to celebrate our anniversary, staying in a hotel nearby. If you'd asked me back then, I'd have said he was like a brother. Trustworthy, loyal, or so I thought. "Daniel!" Adam's voice boomed as he entered carrying a bottle of expensive scotch. "Happy anniversary, my man." "Thanks, Adam," I said, clapping him on the back. "That's a solid choice. For a solid couple," he replied with a grin, then handed Linda a bouquet of white lilies. "For the lady of the night." Linda's cheeks flushed. "Adam, you're too sweet." The evening unfolded perfectly, or so it seemed. We laughed, reminisced about old times, and toasted to our decade together. "To 10 amazing years," Linda said during her toast, her voice trembling slightly. "To love, patience, and Daniel, the man who's made it all worth it." Everyone cheered. I kissed her cheek, and for a moment I felt the warmth of everything we'd built together. Later, as the night grew livelier, Sarah suggested dancing. "You know what this night needs?" she said, swirling her wine glass. "Dancing." Linda's eyes sparkled. "Yes, Daniel, turn the music up." I groaned playfully but obliged. Soon, our living room turned into a makeshift dance floor. Linda danced with everyone: Sarah, Amy, Mark, and eventually Adam. I watched them closely, but there was nothing unusual. Not yet. After about an hour of dancing, Amy piped up, "Why stop here? Let's go out to a club and keep the party going." The group buzzed with excitement. Linda clapped her hands. "I love that idea. Let's do it." I frowned. "I don't know, Linda. I'm tired from work. Maybe we should plan it for another time." Linda pouted. "Oh, come on, Daniel. It's our anniversary. Live a little." "I'll stay," I said, trying to keep my tone light. "You go with everyone. Have fun." She hesitated for a moment before shrugging. "Okay, fine. But don't be mad when I'm the one telling all the fun stories tomorrow." I forced a laugh. "Go, enjoy yourself." When I woke up the next morning, the house was eerily quiet. Linda's side of the bed was empty, untouched. My stomach twisted. I reached for my phone and called her. Straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same result. I dialed Adam next. His phone was off too. Panic creeping in, I called Sarah. "Hey, Daniel," she said groggily. "What's up? Where's Linda? Did she stay with you after the club?" "No," Sarah replied. "We had a few more drinks and left after an hour or two, but Linda and Adam stayed behind. Just the two of them." My chest tightened. "Stayed back? Why?" "They were enjoying themselves a lot," Sarah said. "They didn't want the night to end. They kept saying how much fun they were having and wanted to stay longer." A lump formed in my throat. Then she continued, a bit hesitantly. "I'm not sure, but they seemed kind of close last night." "Close how?" I asked, my voice sharp. "What do you mean?" Sarah sighed. "It was more than just friendly. They were dancing together a lot, laughing, leaning into each other. I thought it was strange, but I didn't say anything. It wasn't really my place. They didn't seem to care who noticed. Something was definitely wrong. Acting on pure instinct, I drove straight to Adam's hotel. At the reception desk, I asked if he was in his room. "Yes," the receptionist said. "He came back early this morning, but he wasn't alone." I froze. "What do you mean?" "There was a woman with him," he said cautiously, his voice low. "They seemed intimate. I assumed they were a couple." A knot tightened in my stomach, my pulse quickening. "Describe her," I demanded, my voice sharper than I intended. He hesitated for a moment, as if choosing his words carefully. "Slim, brunette. She was wearing a green dress." The air left my lungs in a rush, and a cold wave of realization washed over me. My heart sank like a stone. "That's Linda." "That's my wife," I snapped. "He's the best man at our wedding, my best friend. I need to get into his room." The receptionist hesitated. "I'm not sure if—" "Please," I said, my voice thick with desperation. "I just need to see for myself." With a spare key in hand, I stormed up to Adam's room. My heart hammered in my chest as I unlocked the door. The room was dark, the air thick with silence. I flipped on the lights and immediately saw their clothes, her green dress, his suit jacket, scattered across the floor. My stomach churned. I turned toward the bed, and there they were, naked, tangled together under the sheets. "Are you kidding me?" I roared, my voice splitting the heavy silence like thunder. They jolted awake, startled and disoriented. Linda clutched the sheet to her chest, her face pale, her wide eyes filled with panic. Adam sat up beside her, his hands raised as if to defend himself, his voice trembling. "Daniel, wait." "Wait?" I spat, my words crackling with disbelief and fury. "Wait for what, Adam? You've got to be kidding me. With my wife? Really? With my wife?" My voice broke on the last word, the betrayal twisting the knife even deeper. Linda's face crumpled, her lip quivering as tears spilled freely down her cheeks. "Daniel, we didn't mean for it to happen. We were drinking, having fun, and one thing just led to another. I'm so sorry. We were both drunk." "Drunk?" I repeated, my laugh bitter and jagged, a hollow sound that burned my throat. "That's your excuse? You didn't mean to sleep with our best man? With my best friend?" Adam tried to step in, raising his hands. "It's not what it looks like." Before he could finish, I lunged, my fist connecting with his face in a sickening crunch. He staggered backward, clutching his nose, blood pouring from between his fingers. "Not what it looks like?" I bellowed, my voice shaking with rage. "You're in bed with my wife, Adam. How the hell else am I supposed to take this?" I advanced on him, my fists clenched, my chest heaving. "Get up!" I roared, my voice raw with fury and heartbreak. "Fight me, you coward!" "Daniel, stop!" Linda screamed, her voice breaking. "This isn't helping anything." I whipped around, my fury burning through every word. "You don't get to tell me what helps, Linda. Not after this." The room fell into chaos. Linda was sobbing uncontrollably, repeating that it was a mistake, that she'd had too much to drink. Adam, blood trickling from his nose, tried to speak, but the words felt hollow, meaningless. I wasn't listening. "I trusted you," I spat, each word like venom. I trusted you both, and this is how you repay me? Daniel, please, Linda begged, her voice small and desperate. I am so sorry. It didn't mean anything. I love you. It meant enough for you to throw everything away, I shot back, my voice cold as ice. You've destroyed everything we built, Linda. Everything. I'm filing for divorce. You'll hear from my lawyer soon. The rage that had consumed me slowly gave way to a deep, crushing emptiness. I left Adam's hotel room and drove aimlessly, my mind a blur, until I found myself outside my mother's house. I couldn't bear to be alone. I knocked on the door, my hands trembling. When she opened it, the sight of her familiar, comforting face broke through the wall I had tried to keep up. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Mom, I need you. I can't do this. I don't know what to do, I said, my voice thick with emotion. She stepped aside, her face a mix of concern and confusion. Daniel, what's wrong? I caught Linda and Adam together. I choked out, my throat tightening. They betrayed me. She slept with him. On our anniversary. The words tasted bitter in my mouth, but I forced them out, steadying my voice. It's over, Mom. I'm filing for divorce. I can't stay in this marriage after what she's done. There was a long silence. I could feel her processing it, the weight of it hitting her just as hard as it had hit me. Oh, my dear, she finally said, her voice gentle but filled with concern. I'm so sorry. I can't imagine how much pain you're in right now. Come inside. You don't have to go through this alone. I walked in and my heart ached as I saw the kids playing in the living room. They looked up at me, their innocent faces unaware of the storm raging inside me. I could barely manage a smile, but I went to them and hugged them tightly, grateful for their presence even though I knew everything was about to change. For about an hour I sat with my mom in the kitchen, talking as her gentle words helped me untangle the chaos in my mind. When I mentioned how much I didn't want to uproot the kids' lives, how I worried about them in the middle of this disaster, she gave me the perspective I desperately needed. Daniel, she said softly, it's important for you to take care of yourself too. You've been hurt, and you'll need time to heal. Let the kids stay here for a few more days. You need space to sort things out, to figure out what's next, for yourself and for them. Her words settled over me like a balm. She was right. I couldn't think clearly with the constant reminder of Linda's betrayal weighing me down. The kids deserved a stable environment, free from the tension that had overtaken our lives. This was the first step in making sure they had that. With the kids at my mom's, I checked in a nearby hotel and took a few days to gather my thoughts and face the harsh reality of my crumbling marriage. The emptiness of the hotel room was suffocating, but I used the silence to process what had happened and focus on the steps ahead. Slowly, I felt the crushing weight in my chest ease, just enough to allow me to move forward. But the path ahead was still daunting. The divorce loomed large, a painful reminder of the life I had lost and the new one I had to build. The divorce took 7 months to finalize, and during that time, Linda stayed in our house with the kids, and they lived with her during the week. On the weekends, they would come to my new place. It was tough not having them full-time, but I made the most of the time we shared. Eventually, Linda was granted custody of the kids and kept the house, our house. It wasn't easy, and it felt like everything I had worked for was slipping away. But I knew I had to put my own feelings aside for the sake of the kids. We also stuck to our previous arrangement, and I continued to see the kids on the weekends. I focused on making the most of the weekends I had with them, cherishing every moment we spent together. I took them to the park, helped with their homework, and cooked their favorite meals. I ensured a stable routine while they were with me, keeping things as normal as possible, even though our lives had changed. Watching them grow and develop, I knew I had to be there for them, because they needed me more than ever. No matter how much the weight of the divorce lingered, I couldn't let it overshadow their childhood. I had to stay strong and do better for them. But even as I threw myself into fatherhood, the pain refused to fade. Every time I saw Linda drop the kids off, I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal. She was still their mother, and I couldn't erase that no matter how much I wanted to. The truth was, I couldn't stop thinking about what happened between her and Adam. Was it just a mistake? Or was there more? I wasn't sure I'd ever find the answer. In the end, it didn't matter. What mattered was the future, my kids' future. As the years went by, things settled into a routine. The kids grew older and I found myself slowly healing. I met someone else, a woman who was patient, understanding, and didn't carry the baggage of my past. Eventually, Linda started dating again, too. She never spoke about Adam, but I could tell she was trying to move on from the mess we had left behind. As for me, I never spoke to Adam again. I couldn't bring myself to forgive him. His betrayal had cut too deep, and I wasn't ready to pretend like it didn't matter. Even though I'd moved on in many ways, the scars of Linda and Adam's betrayal lingered. They would eventually fade, but they would never fully disappear. It took time, but I realized I could still find peace. I didn't need Linda's apology. I didn't need Adam's excuses. I had my children, my family, and my dignity. That's what mattered now. Thank you for watching. Mandy and I had been together for 3 years, engaged for 1, and we were just a few months away from getting married. She was everything I ever wanted. Smart, beautiful, funny. She had this infectious laugh that could light up a room and a way of making me feel like I was the most important person in the world. We weren't just partners, we were a team. We had built a life together, bought a house in a quiet neighborhood, and had even started talking about kids. I thought we were solid. I thought she loved me the way I loved her. Then, Miami happened. Mandy had planned a trip with her 2 best friends, Lisa and Erica. It was just supposed to be a fun getaway, a girls' trip before life got serious with kids and responsibility. I didn't think much of it. I trusted her. The night before she left, we were lying in bed, and she ran her fingers through my hair. "I'm gonna miss you, babe," she said, kissing my cheek. "You better," I joked. "Don't party too hard without me." She laughed. "It's just Miami, Dave, not a wild bachelorette party." I smiled, believing every word. She left on Thursday morning. I drove her to the airport, kissed her goodbye, and told her to call when she landed. She did. Everything seemed normal. For now. Thursday night was fine. Mandy sent me a picture of their fancy seafood dinner. Oysters, lobster, and champagne. Exactly the kind of thing she loved. She even texted me a short video of the view from their hotel balcony, where the ocean stretched endlessly beneath the glittering Miami skyline. "Wish you were here? You'd love this place," she wrote. We talked for a little while before she went to bed. She sounded happy, relaxed. Nothing felt strange. "Miss you already," she whispered before hanging up. "Miss you too, babe," I had replied, completely at ease. She even sent a goodnight text after that, something she always did when we were apart. But Friday, something changed. I woke up early and sent her a message. "Morning, babe. How's Miami?" No response. At first, I didn't think much of it. Maybe she was still asleep. But by lunchtime, when I still hadn't heard from her, I checked my phone again. No reply. That was unusual. Mandy always responded quickly, even if it was just a short message. She wasn't the type to ignore her phone for hours. Finally, around 1 in the afternoon, she texted back, "Sorry, babe. Just been super busy. Love you." That was it. No details, no emojis, no mention of what she had been up to. Just a generic, rushed response. I frowned, staring at the screen. Busy? Doing what? I tried to shake it off. Maybe they were sightseeing or out shopping. Maybe she was genuinely caught up in the moment. But something about the way she worded it felt distant. That night I decided to call her. No answer. I waited 15 minutes and tried again. Straight to voicemail. I felt my chest tighten. Mandy always answered my calls, even when she was out. If she couldn't talk, she'd at least text me back. Something wasn't right. I checked her last online status. She had been active 10 minutes ago, so she was on her phone, just not talking to me. I tried calling again. Voicemail. I set my phone down, exhaling sharply. I wanted to believe I was overthinking it, that she was just having fun with her friends and I was being paranoid. But deep down, something was nagging at me, a feeling I couldn't shake. Something was wrong, and I was starting to realize it. The next morning, Mandy finally called me. Her voice was bright, almost too cheerful, as if nothing had happened. "Hey, babe," she said, her tone light and casual. "Sorry I didn't pick up last night. We went out and it got super late." I sat up in bed, rubbing my face. Something about her voice felt off, too smooth, too rehearsed. Still, I kept my tone normal. "Oh yeah? Where'd you go?" "Just some bar Lisa wanted to check out," she replied quickly. "Then we got tacos at this little place near the beach. It was so good." She was talking fast, as if trying to fill the space with details I didn't ask for. A little too much effort. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the way she spoke made my stomach tighten. "Sounds fun. Wish I was there," I said, testing her reaction. "I know," she cooed. "I miss you." There was a brief pause, just long enough for me to think the conversation was wrapping up. "All right, babe, I'll call you later." And then, it happened. A man's voice. Deep, groggy, too close. "What are you doing? Come back to bed, baby." And just like that, the call cut off. I sat there, my phone still pressed against my ear, my entire body frozen. My heart pounded so hard I could hear it in my ears. What the hell was that? My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I just heard. Maybe it was the TV. Maybe it was some drunk guy messing around. Maybe one of her friends had a boyfriend staying at the hotel. I ran through every possible explanation, clinging to anything that didn't mean what I already knew deep down. No. There was no mistaking the tone in that voice. It was intimate, possessive. He wasn't just in the same room, he was in bed with her. And just like that, everything clicked. The ignored calls, the delayed responses, the vague excuses, the sudden distance in her voice. I felt sick. I wanted to throw my phone across the room, scream, do something. But I didn't. I just sat there, staring at the screen, my hands clenched into fists. Mandy wasn't just out having fun with her friends. She was cheating on me. I couldn't sit with this feeling. My mind wouldn't stop racing, replaying that voice over and over in my head. The way he said it, "Come back to bed, baby." It wasn't just some casual slip-up. It was a moment of intimacy that I was never supposed to hear. I needed proof, real proof. I wasn't about to confront Mandy and let her spin some lie about how I was overthinking things. That same day I hired a private investigator. His name was Ryan, older guy, ex-cop. I found him through a mutual contact, explained the situation, and wired him the money immediately. "Find her, take pictures, I need proof." "Understood. I'll be in Miami by tonight." I hung up and exhaled, gripping my phone so hard my fingers ached. This was happening. I had just hired someone to track my own fiancé. It felt insane, but deep down I knew. I was about to confirm the truth I had been trying to deny. The next day around noon, my phone buzzed. Ryan. My heart pounded as I grabbed the phone and picked up instantly. I found her. There was something in his tone. Pity. My stomach twisted into a tight knot. "And?" I braced myself, my grip tightening around the phone. "She's not just here with her friends, Dave, she's with a guy." The words landed like a gut punch. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. "What exactly did you see?" Ryan sighed, as if he hated being the one to tell me. "They're holding hands, hugging, kissing. I took pictures, sending them now." A moment later, my phone vibrated. I stared at the notification, hesitating. I don't know why. I already knew what I was about to see, but some small, pathetic part of me still wanted to believe there was another explanation, that I had somehow misunderstood, that I was wrong. I opened the first image. Mandy, my Mandy, sitting at an outdoor cafe, laughing as she leaned into some guy, her fingers brushing his arm like it was second nature. My stomach churned. Maybe it was a misunderstanding. Maybe he was a friend. Then the next picture, her kissing him. Not just a peck, not some meaningless drunken mistake. From the way their bodies pressed together, from the way her hand rested on his chest and his arm wrapped around her waist, it was clear. This wasn't hesitation. It wasn't a brief slip. It was deep, intimate, deliberate. My breathing slowed, but not in a calming way. It felt measured, controlled, too controlled. I scrolled again. Another photo. Them walking hand in hand down the beach. Their heads tilted toward each other, bodies close, moving as one. Like a damn couple. Something inside me snapped. There it was. Cold, undeniable proof. My wife-to-be wasn't just enjoying a girl's trip in Miami. She was cheating on me, shamelessly, openly, without a care in the world. And she thought I'd never find out. I gripped my phone so hard my fingers ached. My chest burned, but my mind was clear. I tried to stay calm, but there was no calm, only rage. She had no idea what was coming. I didn't call her. I didn't yell. I didn't demand an explanation because I didn't need one. The pictures told me everything I needed to know. There was no room for excuses, no way for her to twist the truth. So I did the only thing that made sense. I acted. First, I called the venue. The wedding was canceled. There was a brief pause on the other end, followed by a hesitant response, but I didn't bother explaining. It didn't matter. Next, I called the caterers, then the photographer, and finally the florist. One by one, I erased every detail we had spent the last year planning. The seating arrangements, the menu, the flowers. Everything was gone in a matter of minutes. But I wasn't done. The next call I made was to a locksmith. "How soon can you get here?" I asked, my voice steady. "Within the hour," the man replied. "Perfect." By the time he arrived, I was already packing her things. I went through every inch of the house, collecting anything that belonged to her. Clothes, shoes, bags, all of it. They all went into boxes. I wasn't leaving a single trace of her behind. Then, I printed the photos Ryan had sent me. One by one, I slid them into a folder. The proof of her betrayal, the evidence of what she had thrown away. By nightfall, everything she owned was packed into boxes. I stood there for a moment, staring at them, letting it sink in. She had made her choice. Now, I was making mine. She wasn't stepping foot inside my house again. On Tuesday evening, Mandy was coming back, and I made sure everything was ready. Every single thing she owned had already been moved to the front yard, stacked neatly like a delivery waiting to be picked up. But I wasn't just going to leave her stuff out and disappear. No, I wanted her to feel this. I wanted her to experience the weight of what she had done. I had called Arthur, an old friend of mine, one Mandy had never met. I needed someone neutral, someone she wouldn't recognize, and Arthur was perfect for the job. Before he got there, I had moved my car from the driveway and parked it a few blocks away, making sure there was no sign of me being home. Arthur had brought his own car and parked it in the driveway, making it look like the house truly belonged to someone else now. He arrived early, looking around at the piles of boxes with mild curiosity. "You sure about this?" he asked, crossing his arms. "Absolutely," I said. Arthur nodded. "All right, let's do it." We waited. And then right on time, a taxi pulled up in front of the house. I stayed inside, just out of sight, watching. Mandy stepped out, suitcase in hand, her face bright with the expectation of walking into the home she thought was still hers. But the moment she saw the boxes and an unfamiliar car in the driveway instead of mine, she froze. Confusion flickered across her face, then panic. She hesitated, looking around like she expected me to jump out at any second. Then her pace quickened, her heels clicking against the pavement as she rushed to the front door. She pulled out her key, tried to unlock the door. Didn't work. She tried again. Nothing. I watched from the window as frustration turned to desperation. She banged on the door. "Dave, open the door!" she yelled, her voice rising in urgency. Arthur, standing calmly by the entrance, opened the door instead. Mandy's face twisted in confusion. She stared at him, completely thrown off. "Who the hell are you?" she snapped. Arthur smiled slightly. "I could ask you the same thing. What do you want in my house?" Her expression shifted to pure disbelief. "Your house? What are you talking about? Where's Dave?" Arthur shrugged. "The previous owner? He sold it. I just bought the place yesterday." Mandy's mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked between Arthur and the locked door, like her brain was trying to process something that didn't make sense. "No, that's not possible. This is my house," she insisted. "Where's Dave?" Arthur reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a folder. "He knew you would stop by, so he told me to give you this," he said simply, extending it to her. Mandy's hands shook as she took the folder, her breath coming out in short, panicked bursts. She hesitated before flipping it open, and then she saw them, the photos. Her at the cafe, leaning into the guy, their hands touching. Her kissing him, them walking hand in hand down the beach, like a real couple. Her fingers clenched around the edges of the pictures. She staggered back like she had been punched. I could see her from inside, could see the way her shoulders slumped, the way her face drained of color. Her breath hitched as she flipped through the images again, like she couldn't believe her own eyes, like if she stared long enough they would somehow change. They didn't, and neither did the truth. She dropped the folder, papers scattering onto the pavement, and covered her mouth with both hands. Her entire body shook, horror and guilt crashing into her all at once. Arthur watched silently. Finally, she turned and ran. She didn't pick up the photos. She didn't try to argue. She just left. That night, my phone lit up with call after call. When I didn't answer, the messages started coming in. "Dave, please talk to me." "I can explain." It wasn't what it looked like. "Please, I love you, just talk to me." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. She had made her choice, and now she was living with it. The next morning, I packed up the last of my things and moved out. The house, the place that once held so many memories, meant nothing to me anymore. A few weeks later, I sold it, for real this time. Left everything behind. I started fresh. No more Mandy, no more wedding, no more betrayal. And just like that, I was free. Thank you for watching. It all began with a trip. Stephanie's dream vacation to Europe. She'd been planning it for years, saving up, collecting guidebooks, watching travel shows on TV. "I just need a break," she'd said, her voice carrying the weight of a decade of routine. "I'll be gone for a week, and when I get back, we'll be better than ever. Rebecca, Rachel, and I are going together with a travel group. It's all planned out, and we'll have a guide the entire time." I'd nodded, smiled, encouraged her. "You deserve it, Stephanie. Go enjoy yourself." The truth was, I didn't mind her going. Work had been brutal lately, and a little space sounded like a good idea for both of us. Or at least, that's what I told myself. The first few days she was gone, everything felt normal. We texted every day, exchanged photos, and kept in touch whenever we could. She sent me pictures of the Eiffel Tower, the canals of Venice, and plates of exotic-looking food. She looked happy, radiant even. I missed her, but I also relished the quiet. It was during the last couple of days that things started to shift. Her messages became shorter, less frequent. Calls went unanswered, and when she finally did reply, her tone seemed distant. I chalked it up to the time difference, or maybe she was just tired. But a nagging feeling began to creep in. When she came home, I was waiting at the airport with flowers. She looked different. Her hair was styled in a way I'd never seen, and there was a new confidence in her step. She hugged me tightly, almost too tightly, and kissed me on the cheek. "How was it?" I asked as we walked to the car. "Amazing," she said, her voice almost too bright. "Europe is everything I dreamed of and more." Her answers were vague, her stories rushed. Something was off, but I didn't push. I told myself I was imagining things. Later that night, as I sat on the couch watching TV, my phone buzzed. It was a message from Rebecca, one of Stephanie's friends who'd been with her on the trip. "David, I need to see you tomorrow. It's important," she wrote. Rebecca. She'd always been complicated. She had a way of looking at me with a gaze that lingered just a little too long, her eyes carrying something more than friendliness. When Stephanie wasn't around, even just for a moment, like if she went to the kitchen to grab something, Rebecca would find a way to get close to me. Too close. There was a time she leaned in, her face inches from mine, as if she wanted to kiss me. I'd stepped back, brushing it off awkwardly, determined not to betray my wife. So when I saw Rebecca's message, my stomach twisted. I couldn't shake the unease it brought, but I told myself it was better left unanswered. Whatever she had to say, I didn't want to hear it. I put my phone down, determined to focus on Stephanie and not let anything else distract me. But just a couple of days later, things started to take a turn. I'd come home early from work, hoping to surprise her with dinner. As I walked through the door, I heard her voice, low and urgent, speaking quickly into the phone. "I told you it's over. I can't talk right now," she said before hanging up abruptly. When she saw me, her face flushed. "Who was that?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Just a friend," she said too quickly. "From the trip." "Which friend?" I pressed. "Just someone I met in a tour group," she said, brushing past me. "I'm going to take a shower." Later that night, I sat on the couch, my mind spinning as I replayed the events of the evening. The way I'd caught Stephanie on the phone, the rushed words she'd said, and the strange way she'd shut me out. It all felt off. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was slipping through my fingers. That's when my phone buzzed, pulling me from my thoughts. It was a message from Rebecca again. My heart skipped a beat as I read her text. "David, I need to talk to you. It's important. It's about Stephanie. Can we meet tomorrow?" The urgency in her message and the fact that she wanted to tell me something important about my wife made me uneasy, like she knew something I didn't. I couldn't ignore it. I typed back, almost against my better judgment. "Sure. What's going on?" she replied quickly. "I'll explain everything in person." The next day we met at a quiet cafe on the other side of town. Rebecca was already there, nursing a cup of coffee, her face unusually serious. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "What's this about?" I asked, skipping the pleasantries. She hesitated, her eyes darting around like she was afraid of being overheard. Then she pulled out her phone. "I didn't know how to tell you this, David, but I think you deserve to know the truth." "What truth?" I asked, my stomach tightening. Without a word, she handed me her phone. On the screen was a photo of Stephanie. She was in a cozy embrace with a man I didn't recognize. They were standing by what looked like a cobblestone street, her arms wrapped around his neck, their faces close. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "There's more," Rebecca said softly, swiping to the next image. This one was worse. Stephanie and the same man kissing, their faces lit up like they didn't have a care in the world. And then came the video. It was short, just a few seconds, but it was damning. Stephanie was laughing, holding the man's hand and leaning in to kiss him again. "That man," Rebecca said. "He was in our travel group. His name is Josh. They were inseparable by the end of the trip." I stared at the screen, my mind racing. "Why are you showing me this?" I finally asked, my voice tight. "Because you deserve better," Rebecca said, reaching out to touch my hand. I didn't want to get involved, but I couldn't just stay quiet anymore. Her touch lingered for a moment, and I pulled my hand away. "I need to talk to Stephanie." Rebecca nodded. "I'm sorry, David. I really am." I went home that evening, my mind a storm of anger and betrayal. Stephanie was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. "We need to talk," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. She looked up, her eyes wary. "What's wrong?" I held up my phone, showing her the photos Rebecca had sent me. "Care to explain this?" Her face went pale, and for a moment she was speechless. Finally she stammered, "What is this? Where did you get these photos?" I stared at her, my anger barely contained. "You didn't think I'd find out?" "Really, Stephanie?" She stood up slowly, her hands trembling as she reached for her phone, likely trying to mask her reaction. "David, please. No." I cut her off sharply. "Don't try to deny it. I have the photos, the video. You were kissing him, hugging him. How could you do this?" Her eyes filled with tears, but I pressed on. "Why? What did I do? What does he have that I don't?" She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. "It wasn't like that," she stammered. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." "It just did?" I scoffed, my anger rising. "You think I'm stupid? You expect me to believe this was some accident? You were gone for a week, Stephanie. A week. And this is what you did?" She clasped her hands together, visibly shaking. "It was a mistake. A horrible mistake. I was caught up in the moment, away from everything. From you. I wasn't thinking." I stepped back, disbelief washing over me. "So that's your excuse? You didn't think about me? About us? About everything we've built?" Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I was ashamed, David. I still am. I know I hurt you, but I swear it didn't mean anything. I regret it every single day." "You didn't just hurt me, Stephanie. You broke me." She dropped to her knees, sobbing. "Please, David, don't leave me. I love you. I'll do anything to make this right, to prove I can be the wife you deserve. Please give me a chance." Then she grasped at my hands, desperate. "I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, I promise. Please, don't give up on us." I didn't say a word. Instead, I turned, walked to the shelf, and grabbed our marriage certificate and wedding photo. Stephanie froze, watching in disbelief as I tore both in half right in front of her. Her sobs turned into a wail, but I remained cold, detached. "It's over," I said firmly. "I'll file for divorce. There's no going back after what you've done. Nothing will ever be the same." She collapsed onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably, but I didn't care. The trust, the love, the foundation of everything we had, it was gone. I grabbed a few of my things, clothes, my laptop, and a couple of personal items, and left the house. I didn't care about anything else. I couldn't stay there, not after what she had done. I needed to get away. I went to my friend Jake's house, told him everything that had happened. His jaw dropped when I finished the story. Man, I had no idea. He trailed off, shaking his head. I'm sorry, David, that's messed up. He offered me a drink and a place to crash for a few days. I needed to think, to get away from everything. Listen, my cousin knows a really good lawyer, Jake added after a moment, taking a swig of beer. He can help you with the divorce, no questions asked. I'll get you the number if you want. I nodded, feeling the weight of it all pressing down on me. I'll call him tomorrow. The next day, just as I was getting myself together, my phone buzzed. It was Rebecca. Hey, David, she said, her voice light but with an edge of concern. I know you've been through a lot. If you want to go out or just need someone to talk to, I'm here for you. I was taken aback for a moment, but the loneliness, the anger, the emptiness, it all hit me like a wave. I needed to escape, if only for a little while. Yeah, I replied, my voice quieter than I intended. I'd like that. We met at a bar downtown. The dim lights, the music, the buzz of conversation, it felt like a good place to drown out the chaos in my mind. Rebecca and I found a quiet corner, a booth away from the crowd. She was closer than I expected, her presence calming, but there was an energy between us, something unspoken. You don't deserve any of this, David, she said softly, looking into my eyes with an intensity that made me uncomfortable, and yet I couldn't look away. You deserve so much better than what Stephanie did to you. It's not right. I swallowed, the sting of it still fresh in my chest. I don't know what to do anymore. I thought I had everything, and now it's all shattered. Rebecca leaned in, her voice dropping. I get it. I've always gotten it. I know what you're going through. And I've always wanted you, David. I've wanted you for a long time. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a jolt of confusion. Rebecca had always been my wife's friend, someone I saw only in passing. But the way she was looking at me now, it was different. I'd give up my friendship with Stephanie for you, she continued, her words slow and deliberate, if it meant we could be together. The words hung in the air between us, and I could feel the tension building. I didn't know what to say. The grief, the anger, the betrayal, they all collided with something else, something raw and real. Before I could process it, Rebecca's lips were on mine. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but it quickly deepened as everything else faded away. I didn't pull back. In that moment, the world seemed distant. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless, conflicted, and lost in a whirlwind of emotions. I didn't know what I was doing, but it felt like something I needed, something to fill the void, if only for a moment. But as the fog began to lift, reality set in. I knew things couldn't stay the way they were. I had already taken the first steps toward moving on, and it was time to follow through. The divorce proceedings were swift. I called Jake's cousin, who put me in touch with a lawyer, and before I knew it, papers were being filed. Stephanie didn't fight me on it. Maybe she realized she couldn't win this battle. It was clear to me that there was no going back, no fixing what she'd broken. Rebecca and I grew closer in the weeks that followed. She was there when I needed someone to talk to, someone who understood the pain I was going through. We spent late nights together, talking, laughing, and comforting each other. Slowly, the walls I had built around my heart started to come down. One afternoon, I was at Rebecca's house. We'd been spending more time together recently, and it felt like things between us were beginning to shift. I couldn't deny that I was starting to feel something real for her. I was sitting on the couch when I heard a knock at the door. Rebecca got up to answer it, and I didn't think much of it at first. But then the door opened, and there stood Stephanie, her face pale, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief. I was still wearing a robe, and when she saw me, her expression twisted with pain. David, her voice cracked, and I could hear the raw emotion in it. What is this? What the hell is going on here? I didn't say anything. There was no need to explain. There was nothing left to say. Stephanie's gaze flickered between Rebecca and me, her eyes searching for something to hold on to. But I wasn't that person anymore, and she was beginning to see it. Rebecca, standing firm and calm, finally spoke up. What do you want, Stephanie? Stephanie's face twisted with disbelief. I knew it. I knew you'd be with her. She stepped into the room, her voice shaking with anger and hurt. How could you? After everything we had, you were the one I wanted. I made a mistake, but please, David, please forgive me. I'll do anything. I'm begging you. Tears welled up in her eyes as she turned toward me, her breath coming in ragged gasps. I was wrong. I regret it every day. I'm sorry. I need you back. Please, David. We can fix this. We can start over. But I just stood there silent. The anger and the hurt that I'd felt for so long were now a part of the past. I had already made my decision, and so had she. Rebecca stepped forward, her voice soft but unwavering. Stephanie, it's over. He's not coming back to you. He's made his choice. Stephanie's face crumpled with pain as she looked at Rebecca, then back at me. You slut! How dare you take my husband from me? You were my friend. Her voice broke, and without another word she turned and stumbled toward the door. As the door slammed shut behind her, a heavy silence settled in the room. It was over. No more lies, no more guilt, just the quiet that followed the storm. Rebecca and I continued to build something new, something real. She was there for me in ways Stephanie never had been, and I found myself falling for her. Not out of spite or revenge, but because it just felt right. As for Stephanie, I never spoke to her again. It was done, and with Rebecca by my side, I knew that I could finally move on. Thank you for watching. Welcome to Cheater Confessions. Let's get started with today's story. My name is Larry, and I was married to Judith for 6 years. For a long time, I thought we were happy. Sure, we had our ups and downs like any couple, but I never imagined things could take such a turn. It started about 9 months ago. Judith became distant, emotionally and physically. She started going out more often, saying it was girls' nights, or she was just running errands. At first, I didn't think much of it. Judith always valued her independence. But then, the arguments began. One evening, Judith came home late, smelling faintly of perfume I didn't recognize. Hey, I said casually as she walked in. Where were you? I thought we were going to watch that show tonight. She looked at me like I'd asked the dumbest question in the world. I told you I was meeting Samantha for drinks, she said, dropping her purse on the counter. No, you didn't, I replied, trying to keep my tone even. You said you'd be home by 8. It's not a big deal, Larry, she snapped. Why are you always on my case? I remember feeling a knot tighten in my chest. I'm not on your case. I'm just trying to understand why you've been acting so distant lately. Maybe you're imagining things, she said, brushing past me to head upstairs. That's how most of our conversations went after that. Short, tense, unresolved. A couple of weeks later, Judith told me she needed to visit her parents in her hometown. She said her mom wasn't feeling well and she wanted to spend a few days with her. I didn't question it. I mean, what kind of husband would I be if I told her not to check on her family? The first night she was gone, I called her to see how things were going. Hey, babe, I said when she picked up. Hey, she replied, her voice distant. How are you doing? I asked. I'm fine. Mom's doing okay, just tired. We didn't talk long. She seemed eager to get off the phone, but I figured she was just tired from the drive. The next day, I called her again. This time, she didn't pick up. I frowned at my phone. It wasn't like Judith to ignore my calls. I waited about 20 minutes and tried again. This time, it went straight to voicemail. Judith, it's me. Just calling to check in. Call me back when you can, I said, trying to sound casual, even though I was starting to worry. I waited another hour, pacing the living room, glancing at my phone every few minutes. Still no response. Something felt off. She wasn't the type to leave me hanging like this. Finally, I decided to call her parents to see what was going on. Her mom answered after a couple of rings. Hi, Alice, I said. It's Larry. I just wanted to check in. Judith isn't answering her phone and I'm getting a little worried. Oh, Larry, her mom said warmly. Don't worry, she's fine. She went out with some friends earlier. She should be back soon. Out with friends? I asked, my chest tightening. Do you know who she's with? I think she mentioned meeting up with some old friends from school, Alice replied. Nothing to worry about, dear. I thanked her and hung up, but my unease didn't go away. 2 more hours passed, and still nothing from Judith. Finally, I picked up the phone and called her again. This time she answered. Hello? She said, sounding annoyed. Judith, where have you been? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. I've called you 3 times. Hours have passed and you didn't even call me back. I was busy, she snapped. I was out with some friends. What do you want, Larry? What do I want? I said, my frustration boiling over. I want to know why you're ignoring my calls. Is that too much to ask? You're being ridiculous, she said, her tone icy. You don't get to check up on me every second. What, are you going to control me even when I'm visiting my parents? That's not what this is about, and you know it, I shot back. I was worried, Judith. You could have at least let me know you were okay. She let out a bitter laugh. God, you're exhausting. I don't have time for this right now. And with that, she hung up. I stared at my phone, stunned. That wasn't like Judith at all. Something was definitely wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. At least, not yet. The next day, I called again. She picked up, but her voice sounded shaky, almost as if she were out of breath. Hey Judith, you okay? I asked. Yeah, I'm fine, she said quickly. Just went for a quick run. What's up? We chatted for a few minutes, but there was an edge to her tone, like she was distracted. All right, I'll talk to you tomorrow, she said. Okay, good night, I replied. But she didn't hang up. I don't think she even realized the call was still connected. I was about to hang up myself when I heard her voice again, faint but clear. Don't worry, he bought it, she said, and then a man's voice responded. I froze. My stomach dropped. You sure he doesn't suspect anything? The man asked. No, Judith replied, laughing softly. He's clueless. My heart pounded as I listened. I wanted to hang up, but I couldn't. The next words I heard shattered me. Come here, the man said. And then there was silence, except for the sound of kissing. I ended the call, my hands shaking. My mind raced. Did I really just hear that? My chest felt tight and my breath quickened. I wanted to convince myself I'd misheard, that there was some other explanation. Maybe she was joking, or it wasn't what it sounded like. But deep down, I knew. There was no mistaking it. Judith, my wife, the woman I thought I'd spend my life with, was with another man. My stomach churned and I felt like I might throw up. How could she do this to me? To us? I sat there for what felt like hours, staring at my phone. My thoughts spiraled. Anger, sadness, disbelief. I thought about all the times I called her yesterday and she didn't pick up, her angry response. She was probably with him then too. It all made sense now. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and powerless all at once. But one thing was certain. I couldn't ignore this. I had to do something. The next morning I decided I needed proof. Solid proof. I couldn't confront Judith without it because I knew she'd deny everything. She'd twist my words, make me feel like I was imagining things, and somehow I'd end up apologizing. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator. The investigator worked fast, and 2 days later he called me. I've got what you need, he said. We met at his office. He slid a manila folder across the table. Here are the photos and a full summary. I've also forwarded the videos to your email. I opened the folder. The first photo was Judith outside a hotel, holding hands with a man I didn't recognize. My chest tightened as I flipped through more pictures. Them walking into the hotel, sitting close at a cafe, kissing in a parking lot. Check your email for the videos, the investigator added. I pulled out my phone, opened the email, and pressed play on the first video. It was grainy but clear enough. Judith and the man were standing by a car, kissing. My stomach churned. His name's Mark, the investigator said. They've been meeting at the hotel outside her hometown. I nodded, unable to speak. My hands trembled as I clutched the folder. This was it, the proof I dreaded yet needed. I thanked him and left, sitting in my car for what felt like forever. My mind was racing. The betrayal was undeniable. Judith wasn't just lying. She had cheated, and I could no longer ignore it. That night I barely slept. I kept replaying everything in my head, her voice on the phone, the photos, the video. By morning I knew one thing for sure. I couldn't stay married to someone who betrayed me like that. I had to take action. The first thing I did was grab my phone and open our banking app. I transferred every penny from our joint account into my personal account. I wasn't being vindictive. I was protecting myself. I knew Judith would try to access the money eventually, and I wasn't about to let her use it to fund her affair. Next, I called a locksmith. By the time the locksmith arrived, I had already started planning my next move. He worked quickly, replacing the locks on every door in the house. When he handed me the new set of keys, I felt a small sense of relief, like I was starting to take control of the situation. After that, I went to a lawyer's office to start the divorce process and discuss how I could protect my assets. I wanted to make sure Judith would get the least possible from the divorce. The lawyer asked a few questions, and I briefly explained the situation. "We'll get the paperwork started," she said, looking over some documents, "and we'll also go over strategies to protect your assets." "Thank you," I replied, feeling a mix of relief and anxiety as I prepared for the next steps. When I got home, I didn't waste any time. I went to our bedroom and grabbed every one of Judith's belongings. Her clothes, her shoes, her makeup. It all went into boxes. I didn't care if I was being ruthless. I wasn't about to let her walk back into this house like nothing had happened. By the time I was done packing, the boxes filled half the living room. I carried them outside, stacking them neatly in the front yard where she couldn't miss them. I sat in the living room, staring at the empty space where her things used to be. The house felt different, quieter. For the first time, it didn't feel like our home. It felt like my home. I glanced at the clock. It was late. Judith would be back soon, and I knew there'd be a storm when she saw what I'd done. But I was ready for it. I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. Judith came home that evening. I heard her car pull into the driveway and then silence. A moment later, there was a loud knock on the door. "Larry!" she yelled. "What the hell is going on?" I opened the door and leaned against the frame. "You tell me," I said calmly. Her eyes darted to the boxes on the lawn. "Why are my things outside, and why can't I get in?" "Because you don't live here anymore," I replied, my voice steady. "I know, Judith. I know everything." Her face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play dumb," I snapped. "I heard you, on the phone, with him." She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. "And just in case you want to deny it, I've got photos, videos, all of it." Judith's hands trembled. "Larry, please let me explain." "There's nothing to explain," I shouted. "You cheated, Judith. You lied to me. You broke us." Tears streamed down her face, but I didn't care. "You don't understand," she sobbed. "I didn't mean for it to happen." I laughed bitterly. "You didn't mean for it to happen? Don't insult me by pretending it was an accident. You were supposed to visit your parents because your mom wasn't feeling well, not to screw around." "Please," she begged. "Let me in. We can talk about this." "No," I said firmly. "We're done. I've filed for divorce. You can take your things and go. Don't come back." She didn't say a word. Her face showed a mix of sadness and regret as she turned and left. The door clicked shut behind her, and as I stood there for a moment, a sense of relief washed over me. The weight that had been crushing me for the last couple of days was finally gone, and I could breathe again, free from the chaos she had brought into my life. Judith moved in with her lover, and the divorce process began. It was messy, as I expected it would be. She tried to argue for a share of the house and our savings, but my lawyer made sure she didn't get a cent more than she deserved. The hardest part wasn't the legal battles, though. It was letting go of the life I thought we had. I spent weeks questioning myself, wondering if I could have done something differently. But in the end, I realized it wasn't my fault. Judith made her choice, and I had to live with it. Months later, I finally started to move on. I've learned a lot about myself through this ordeal. Trust is fragile, and once it's broken, it's almost impossible to repair. As for Judith, I don't know what she's doing now. And honestly, I don't care. She's not my problem anymore. Eventually, her relationship with Mark didn't last more than 3 months. I heard rumors from mutual acquaintances that he had kicked her out because she cheated on him. It didn't surprise me. After all, she had already shown me who she really was. Then one day she showed up at my door looking defeated. She begged me to take her back, saying she'd made a huge mistake. "You're the man I want," she claimed, her voice shaky. I realized it now. "Please, Larry, I want to come home." I looked at her, feeling nothing but a quiet sense of finality. "It's too late, Judith," I said, my voice steady. "You made your choice, and now you have to live with it." She stared at me for a moment, then turned and left without saying another word. I closed the door behind her and took a deep breath, finally feeling the weight of everything that had happened lifting off my shoulders. It was over, and I was free. Thank you for watching. I used to believe that marriage was about love, trust, and effort. That's what I thought when I married Grace 7 years ago. I wasn't perfect, but I was a committed husband. I worked hard, made sure the bills were paid, and always put her needs before mine. But something changed, slowly at first, so subtly that I ignored it. It started with small things. Grace stopped greeting me at the door when I came home. She stopped texting me throughout the day like she used to. At first, I thought she was just tired, maybe overwhelmed with work. But then, even at home, it felt like I was just there. She barely looked at me. She barely spoke to me. Nights that used to be filled with laughter and conversation turned into her sitting on the couch, scrolling on her phone, or disappearing into the bedroom early. The intimacy that once connected us? Gone, like a candle blown out in the wind. I tried to be patient. I asked her, "Is everything okay?" over and over again. "I'm fine," she always said, never looking up from her phone. But she wasn't fine, and neither was our marriage. I started noticing the pattern, and once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. I was always the one reaching out. If I didn't text her first, the conversation wouldn't happen. If I didn't initiate a hug or a kiss, there was no affection. If I didn't plan date nights, we didn't have them. I kept telling myself it was just a phase, that maybe she was stressed. But deep down, I knew. People make time for what matters to them, and I was no longer on that list. Every time I suggested something to bring us closer, she had an excuse. "I'm too tired. I have a headache. Maybe another time." But another time never came. One Friday night, I decided to do something special. I left work early, stopped by the store, and bought everything I needed to make her favorite meal: pasta with homemade sauce, garlic bread on the side, a nice bottle of wine. I wanted to surprise her, remind her of the way we used to be. I set the table, dimmed the lights, even lit a few candles like I used to when we were newlyweds. I waited, excited, hoping tonight would be different. She walked in around 7 p.m., tossing her bag onto the chair. "Hey," I greeted with a smile. She barely glanced at me. "Hey." Then her eyes flickered to the table, to the meal I had spent hours preparing. She didn't smile. She didn't look touched or happy. Instead, she muttered, "I already ate." I stared at her, feeling my chest tighten. "You already ate?" I repeated, my voice quieter. "Yeah, I grabbed something with the girls after work," she said, slipping off her shoes. Then, without another word, she walked over to the couch, sat down, and pulled out her phone. Like I wasn't even there. I sat across from her, waiting, hoping she'd notice my disappointment, that she'd at least acknowledge what I had done. But she just kept scrolling, her face lit by the screen, completely detached from me and from what was supposed to be our night. After a few minutes, I finally spoke. "Grace." She didn't look up. "What? Are we okay?" She let out a sigh, the kind you give when someone is wasting your time. "Justin, why do you keep asking me that?" "Because we don't talk anymore, because you don't even look at me the way you used to." She rolled her eyes. "I'm just tired. Not everything has to be some big problem." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to tell myself that maybe she really was just tired. But deep down, I knew. She wasn't tired. She just wasn't interested anymore. I let it go for a while. I kept convincing myself that I was overreacting, that every couple goes through rough patches, that she'd snap out of it. But the truth was, I felt like I was living with a stranger. She wasn't my wife anymore. Not really. She was just someone who lived in the same house as me, someone who barely acknowledged my presence. It was like I had been demoted from husband to some irrelevant background character in her life. And then came the night that changed everything. We had eaten dinner. Well, I ate. Grace had barely touched her food, scrolling through her phone the entire time. After finishing, I got up and cleaned up, things she used to help with, things we used to do together. When I walked back into the living room, she was curled up on the couch, still glued to her phone. Her face was blank, illuminated by the glow of the screen, completely detached from the world around her. I stood there for a moment, watching her, feeling something heavy settle in my chest. Enough. I walked over and sat beside her. "Grace, we need to talk." She didn't look up. "About what?" "About us. About this distance between us." She sighed, finally putting her phone down. She didn't look upset. She didn't look nervous. She just looked bored. "Justin, I don't know what you want from me." I stared at her, feeling my jaw tighten. "I want my wife back." She scoffed, crossing her arms. "I haven't gone anywhere. I let out a slow breath, trying to keep my frustration in check. Then why do I feel like I'm married to a ghost? We haven't been close in months. You barely touch me. You barely speak to me. You don't even act like you want to be in the same room as me. She rolled her eyes. I told you I'm tired. Can't you just understand that? Tired? You're tired all the time. That's all I ever hear. But all I see is you making excuses to avoid being close to me. She scoffed, shaking her head. Oh, so now you know how I feel, huh? Well, if I feel like it, I will. And if I don't, then I won't. Simple as that. And then she said it. What I do with my body is none of your business. The words hit me like a slap. My mind stuttered for a moment, trying to process what I had just heard. What? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She leaned back against the couch, arms still crossed. Just because we're married doesn't mean I owe you anything. I felt something inside me crack. I wasn't asking for something I wasn't willing to give in return. I wasn't demanding. I was begging for connection. Grace, I don't think you understand. This isn't about obligation. This is about love. About being close to the person you chose to marry. She let out a dry laugh. You're making this way more dramatic than it is. Not everything has to be about you, Justin. Silence. A cold, suffocating silence stretched between us. That was it. That was the moment I knew. I was the only one holding on. And I was done. I stared at her, really looked at her. This woman I had loved, the woman I had built a life with, and all I saw was someone who had already let go of me a long time ago. For months I had begged for scraps of affection. I had made excuses for her coldness. I had tried to convince myself that if I just worked harder, if I just waited longer, she'd come back to me. But now I saw the truth. She wasn't coming back, because she had already left. She had checked out of this marriage long before this conversation. She had just been waiting for me to catch up. And I finally did. Something inside me shifted, like a weight I had been carrying for years suddenly lifted. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I wasn't even sad anymore. I was just done. I stood up. All right. Grace frowned. What does that mean? I walked over to the chair, grabbed my jacket and slid it on. It means I hear you, loud and clear. She let out a dry, almost amused laugh. So what? You're leaving? I looked at her one last time, taking in the sight of the woman who used to be my everything. Yeah, I am. I didn't yell. I didn't slam the door. I didn't try to make some dramatic exit. I just walked out. And for the first time in a while, I felt free. I checked into a hotel that night. I didn't know where else to go. My hands were still shaking when I handed over my credit card at the front desk, my mind still reeling from what had just happened. I sat on the edge of the stiff hotel bed staring at the wall, waiting for something to hit me. Regret, sadness, anger. But all I felt was exhaustion. For the first time in years, I wasn't fighting anymore. I thought about texting Grace. A part of me expected her to reach out first, to ask where I was, to at least pretend she cared. But the hours ticked by, and my phone stayed silent. A day passed, then another. Nothing. And that's when I knew. I had been right to leave. She wasn't panicked. She wasn't devastated. She wasn't even curious about where I was. She had gotten so used to me always being there, always chasing after her, that she assumed I'd come back on my own. But I wasn't coming back. A week later, I finally got a message from her. Are you really leaving over this? Grow up? I stared at the screen, rereading the words over and over, waiting for some kind of emotion to hit me. But I felt nothing. That was all I needed to know. I filed for divorce the next day. At first, she didn't take it seriously. She thought I was bluffing, that I was trying to teach her some kind of lesson. Then the papers arrived, and suddenly it wasn't a joke anymore. That's when the calls started, the texts, the late-night voicemails, her voice thick with tears. Justin, please, I didn't mean it. I'll do better, we can fix this. You can't just throw this away. But she was wrong. I hadn't thrown anything away. She had. A long time ago. Grace begged me to reconsider. At first it was just texts and voicemails, but then the calls became more frequent. She started showing up at places she thought I might be, outside my office near my gym. Eventually, she tracked down my new apartment, knocking on the door late at night, her voice laced with desperation, a sharp contrast to the cold indifference she had shown before I left. "Justin, please. I know I messed up, but I can change. We can fix this." I didn't respond, not because I wanted to hurt her, but because I had already given her every chance to fix this when it still mattered. She swore things would be different. But love isn't just words, it's actions. And her actions had already shown me where I stood in her life. I wasn't her husband. I was just someone she had gotten used to, someone she assumed would always be there no matter how little effort she put in. So I let go. I moved forward, piece by piece. Some nights were harder than others. There were moments I found myself reaching for my phone, tempted to call her, to fall into old habits. But then I remembered the way she looked at me that night on the couch. The complete lack of emotion when she said, "What I do with my body is none of your business." That wasn't something you said to someone you loved. That was something you said when you had already stopped caring. The divorce was finalized a few months later. Signing those papers felt surreal. A part of me had expected to feel regret, maybe a sense of loss. But when I placed my pen down and slid the documents across the table, all I felt was relief. I was free. With that chapter of my life closed, I started rebuilding. I focused on work, spent more time with friends, and even picked up some old hobbies I had abandoned during my marriage. And then I met her. Her name was Maria. She was different from Grace in every way. Where Grace had been distant, Maria was present. Where Grace had been indifferent, Maria made me feel seen. We met by chance, and before I knew it, conversations turned into dates, and dates turned into something I hadn't felt in years. Happiness. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't just existing. I was living. And then, one evening, Grace showed up. It was late, just past 8 p.m., when I heard the knock on my door. I hesitated before opening it, expecting maybe a neighbor, maybe a delivery I had forgotten about. But when I swung the door open, there she was. Grace. Her hair was a mess, her eyes red and puffy, like she had been crying for hours. She looked smaller somehow, like she had lost the confidence she once carried so effortlessly. "Justin," she whispered. Behind me, Maria stood in the living room, looking toward the door. Grace's eyes flickered past me, landing on her. Her face twisted. "Who the hell is she?" Grace snapped, her voice suddenly sharp. I sighed, already exhausted by the situation. "This is Maria, my girlfriend." Grace's mouth opened, then closed. Then she laughed, a bitter, humorless sound. "Wow," she scoffed, shaking her head. "You really moved on that fast, huh?" "Grace, why are you here?" I asked, my patience thinning. She ran a hand through her hair, her expression shifting from anger to something more fragile. "I tried dating Justin," she admitted. "I tried moving on, but nothing lasted. And now I realize it was always you. It was always supposed to be you." I swallowed, feeling a strange mix of emotions. Pity, maybe. Frustration, definitely. But love? No. That part of me had died the night she told me my feelings didn't matter. "It's too late, Grace," I said evenly. "I begged you to care when it mattered. I fought for us, and you didn't. Now you want to come back because you're lonely? Because dating didn't work out for you?" Her face twisted in anger. "I can't believe you're doing this to me," she snapped. "After everything we've been through." "No, Grace," I said, my voice firm. "After everything I went through." She stood there, breathing heavily, her fists clenched at her sides. "You think she's different?" Grace scoffed, her voice sharp with resentment. "She'll walk away just like I did, just like they all do." Maria didn't flinch. She simply slipped her hand into mine, standing by my side. Grace's expression shattered. She had expected me to let her back in. She had expected the old Justin, the one who always forgave, always waited, always stayed. But that man was gone. "We're over, Grace," I said finally. "Don't come back here again." She stood there for a moment longer, her mouth slightly open like she wanted to argue. Then, without another word, she turned and walked away. I closed the door, locking it behind her. Maria squeezed my hand. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I turned to her, and for the first time in a long, long time I smiled. "Yeah," I said, "I really am. And I meant it. Thank you for watching."